Hey everyone, I'm Leaf and welcome to my YouTube channel, and in today's video I'll be taking my main characters and turning them into Splatoon Idols. I've always really loved the Splatoon franchise and I absolutely love their character designs, and lately I've really been enjoying playing Splatoon Raiders, so I thought this could be a fun challenge. So without further ado, let's get drawing. Okay, you guys know when I design characters, I always like to start with concept sketches. And for this challenge, I'll be doing that too. But it's not just for me to sketch out some rough designs. I'm also using these concept sketches to try and learn how Splatoon proportions their characters, because I want to do my best to try and replicate the Splatoon style to make these idols look a little bit more convincing. And I haven't done a style swap challenge on this channel before, so I thought it would be fun. The first character I will be sketching is Lauren, because she is my main character and I wanted to use her to try and nail down the aesthetics for the rest of the group. I decided to choose an overall theme for this group to help lead my design process on these characters. I couldn't really tell if the other Splatoon idol groups had a core theme that they were following, but I wanted one for myself because I find it's a lot easier to design characters when I have a prompt to work off of. So the theme I decided for my group was like medieval meets street fashion, because if you're unfamiliar with my story, it does take place in a medieval fantasy world, so I wanted to carry over those aesthetics, but with a more modern twist. I just thought that idea was cool, and it gave me a lot of ideas for how to take my fantasy characters and put them in a more modern setting. I am going to be skipping some of my character concepts here because while I did plan to make all 7 of my main characters in this video, certain events happened and my time was cut a little bit shorter than I thought it was going to be. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'll just be showing the characters that I will actually be fully designing in this video. I'll just show their concept process. So we skipped a couple, but now we're moving on to Shadow. When designing these Splatoon versions of my main characters, I wasn't really worried about how accurate they were. I just kind of wanted to get their vibe across more than anything, and I think Shadow's a great example of that. He shares very little features in common with his original design. Besides his main color, the only thing that is close to the original is his hair. I think I got his hair to look pretty similar to how it is originally. The biggest struggle I had when turning my characters into the Splatoon characters was the limited color palette. In Splatoon, each idol has their main color, and other than black and white, they don't really have any other colors. However, in Splatoon 3, they did give the idols each one accent color, so to give me a little bit of extra color to work with, I also decided to give each one of my idols an accent color as well. The next character I will be sketching is Ty, and as you can see by the picture I used for him, I don't really draw Ty that often, so his design came with the unique challenge of I don't really have a main design for him to begin with, so funny enough, he's gonna have his Splatoon design finalized before his actual design. I feel bad for him. I need to draw him and Hemi more often. Who knows, maybe you'll see them in an upcoming video. But anyway, one of the key things when making these characters before I could even design their outfits was to decide whether they were going to be an Inkling or an Octoling. And the easiest way I found to pick out what each character would be was based on their hair type, because I noticed in Splatoon, most of the time Octolings have curlier hair or tentacles and Inklings have straighter tentacles. But with that, our first rough designs for the characters are complete. And now that we have some basic ideas for our designs, it's time to gather references. And to do that, I'll be using today's sponsor, Milanote. If you don't know what Milanote is an organizational tool for planning any sort of project, from illustrations to group projects, or even designing your next cast of Splatoon idols. Basically, Milanote is an online whiteboard, but with a lot of really cool features like notes, to-do list, video links, and my favorite color swatches. But if you don't know where to start, don't worry. Milanote has 100 different templates to choose from to make sure your project is easily understood by you or anyone you share and edit your board with. Milanote also has a mobile app, so you can access your boards on the go. It's really nice to be able to add ideas to my boards as soon as they pop into my head, whether that's at my desk or while on vacation. I've been using Milanote for a long time to help with my creative process, as you've seen on this channel before, and if you would like to try it for yourself, you can sign up for free for an unlimited time with the link in my description. Thank you once again to Milanote for sponsoring this video. Okay, and while I build my reference board in the back, I'm going to talk more about some of my general plans for these characters. This is actually the first time I'll ever be designing a big group of characters at the same time. Usually I like to design one character and then move on to the next one and move on to the next one and so on and so forth. But I wanted these idols to actually look like they were a part of the same group. So I had to start big picture first before I could design any of their individual designs. And this is completely backwards from how I normally work. So having this big reference board to look back to when I'm designing these characters is going to be really helpful in keeping all of their designs consistent. The first thing I did when planning these designs was figuring out what each of their colors was going to be. In Splatoon, each idol has their primary color, and especially in Splatoon 3, they also have an accent color. Like Shiver's main color is this almost purpley blue, and her accent color is red. So I wanted all of my characters to also have a main color and an accent color. I just think having the two will make the designs more interesting in the end. I also wanted all of my idols to follow one central theme that kind of leads all of their designs, and I chose like medieval, knights, and fantasy for their idol group theme because obviously I'm not making new idols here. I'm turning my already existing characters into Splatoon idols, and they come from a medieval fantasy world, so I thought this was fitting. I also just love the idea of mixing modern fashion with medieval elements like armor and chainmail. I thought that could bring a really cool, unique look to their designs. While I was gathering references of previous Splatoon idols and all their different outfits, I noticed a lot of the idol groups have elements that are similar between the designs, but are slightly different to distinguish the characters. Like in Deep Cut, Shiver and Fry both have ponchos, but they are different colors and styles. They also both have a little emblem thing that they have that shows their symbol, and it's the same with like Marina and Pearl. They both have these really fat zippers, but they have a different pattern in the zipper that distinguishes themselves. I wanted to do something similar for my group, except instead of it being like a zipper or a little pendant, all of my idols are going to have one main piece of armor that has a little symbol that represents themselves. I think I could have explained that a lot better, but I hope you guys get what I'm trying to go for here. When I was trying to decide what armor to give what characters, it was really helpful because Milanote actually has this draw feature where I could draw directly on top of my little messy sketches of my characters to plan out which armor was going to go where, because I don't want any of my characters to have the same type of armor, but I'll talk about each of their armor individually when I actually draw their designs. The last couple things I want to mention about this idol group is that they are all going to have chainmail in their designs to bring more of that medieval look, and along with the armor, they're each going to get the group's logo tattooed somewhere on their body. I just thought that could be a really cool element to add, and a lot of my characters have scars or body markings already, so I thought this could be a cool way to represent those. To summarize all of that rambling, the 3 rules I've decided to give myself when designing these idols is that they have to have chainmail, they need one main piece of armor, and they have to have the group's logo somewhere tattooed on their body. And those are the rules I'm going to be using to design my new group of idols. Are you starting to see the vision? Good, because now it's time for the fun part. Let's actually start designing my Splatoon idols. Okay, and the first character I will be drawing is Lauren, because compared to the other two, I had the clearest vision of how I wanted her design to look and also how I wanted to pose her. Splatoon always poses their idols in a very dynamic way, and that's something I really struggle with. I've always wanted to get better at posing my characters. I feel like usually characters end up looking stiff, or I don't really use the pose to show their personality as much as I should. So I wanted to use all of these drawings as more practice for how to pose characters. And for Lauren, I decided to go with a really strong, confident pose because she is a strong, confident character. But I didn't want the pose to be too extreme because I wanted all of my idols to still look good in a lineup together. And if all of their poses are super big and loud, then they would all distract from each other. I also wanted them to all be holding up similar hand signs because in Splatoon, each idol group has their own pose and hand gestures, and since there are 7 idols in this idol group, then I want them all to be making a vague 7 with their hands. Like I said earlier, I wanted each one of my characters to have a main piece of armor featured in their design. And for Lauren, of course, that was her boots, because in her original design, she already has a giant pair of soldier's boots. So it just made a lot of sense. Also on the boots, I put a little octopus symbol because I wanted each one of their armors to feature either an octopus or a squid that kind of resembled them. I just thought that was a cute detail, so I put her little octopus symbol on her knee pads. For the rendering on this drawing, I had the goal to try and make it look as much like a 3D model as I can because Splatoon is a 3D game, and I was really trying to make these designs look convincing, but I'm kind of wishing I didn't try to do that because later on you'll see I ran into a bit of a time crunch and I wasn't able to make my last 2 designs look nearly as polished as I was able to make this one. So it kind of is a bummer because Lauren's rendering is so different than the other 2, but it was a fun challenge. It just took so long. I'm sure you guys can probably tell. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to make a 2D drawing look 3D, but it's pretty hard and pretty time consuming. But I'll try to explain my process a little bit because the way I try to make this look 3D is a lot different than how I've seen other people do it in other style challenges. So the first step that I did is the same as I do in any other drawing, and I just put a multiply layer on top of all of my colors and just used a slightly warm gray. I have found when I draw, just using one unified shadow color that's on the neutral side can really help make a drawing look more 3D. If you pick your own shadow colors for each individual color, that can look really cool, but in real life, shadows are kind of all the same color. So I used the unified shadow color, and then on top of that, I just merged all of my layers so that I could paint all of them all at once. And what I've seen other people do previously when they try to render a drawing to look 3D is that they use a lot of airbrushing, and that can be really good because a lot of the times shadows in real life are soft, but instead of using an airbrush, because I find them really hard to use and even more time consuming because if you use an airbrush you usually have to like select areas and then use the airbrush, but instead I just used a brush that has really good smudging capabilities, and this let me both get harder shadows for areas that would have harder shadows, like for example the line under Lauren's skirt where it's making a shadow on her leg. I was able to keep that edge hard while also making like the shadow on the side of her face soft because my brush could also smudge, if that makes sense. And then to really make this drawing look 3D, I just did so much rendering, like hours and hours of just polishing tiny little details that probably don't matter, but it does if I'm trying to make it look 3D. One of the coolest things that I learned how to do during this drawing process was how to draw chainmail, because a lot of my characters do have chainmail, but I usually just fudge it most of the time and just have the chainmail all be one color of gray. But I found this really cool method where you just kind of draw a bunch of circles in a grid pattern, and then you go back over it with gray on the parts that would be over the other parts. And from afar, it looks pretty convincing. If you look too close at it, you can clearly see that it doesn't really look like chainmail, but like from a distance, it looks pretty good. And that's all I needed, because I don't think any of you are gonna zoom into this low quality video to follow every piece of metal to see if it's linking up properly. So if you need to draw chainmail for your characters, try that method. It works really well. Okay, the last thing I really want to talk about before moving on is more about the armor design for this character and the characters moving forward. I really wanted the armor to be the focal point of each one of their designs, and so I made them pretty detailed. I was kind of worried that my designs were too detailed to be Splatoon Idols, and I still think they are, but that's okay. I can always simplify them later if I want to. But the biggest things with these armor was I wanted all the armor to look very oversized. Splatoon is a pretty cartoony game, and all the armor I could find that's already in the game, they were all like pretty chunky, so I wanted to stick with that with mine too. But I also wanted this armor to look kind of scrappy, like it all goes together, but it's made out of a bunch of different pieces. And one thing that I didn't intend to be a reoccurring element in these designs, but ended up being one, was these ropes. Somehow all of my designs managed to have these ropes with the accent color, and I really wanted to highlight that in each of their pieces of armor. I wanted there to be a lot of rope moving through the different plates to make it look like it's kind of loosely held together. I just think it's a cool aesthetic, and it kind of matches Splatoon's all the games have a very almost like post-apocalyptic type of vibe, especially Splatoon 3. So I think this armor style fits in pretty well, and I like how it turned out. But with the armor being all done and rendered, here is Lauren's final design. I am super happy with how this turned out, especially since it was the first design I finished. I think this will set a really good standard going forward for how I should design my other Splatoon idols. I would also like to mention, I want to give all of these guys new names for their Splatoon idols, because all the Splatoon idols have kind of punny names relating to like the ocean and stuff, because they're squids and octopuses. So if you have any good names for these characters, please leave them in the comments and I will go through them and pick out some names I like for them. Okay, and from this point forward, the quality of the video is going to go down just a little bit, because for these next two drawings I was running a little bit out of time, because I mentioned in the last video that I was getting surgery this week, and I did get surgery, and it was a pretty minor thing. Like, it was not a big deal, and so I thought the recovery was going to be pretty easy and I'd still have time to like fully render all 3 of my characters for this video. Or I was planning on doing 4 actually, and I had to cut it down to 3, but as it goes, recovery was a little harder than I thought, and I was getting surgery on my foot, so I couldn't really walk for a little bit there, and I just had like no motivation to try and get up and sit at my desk, because I needed to keep my foot propped up as much as possible. And so I didn't get as much time to draw because I was in my bed, kind of like bed rotting for a couple days. Honestly, it was kind of nice just sitting in my bed doing nothing, but like I do not have a hard job to begin with, so eventually I told myself I needed to get up and actually draw. So the 2 other drawings in this video are going to be rendered, not like a 3D model, but I still did my best on them and I still really like how they turned out, but they're gonna be more just like cell shaded and lined, a little bit simpler than how I normally draw. So I hope you guys forgive me for that, but all their designs, I still tried to make their designs as detailed as Lauren's, just not with all the extra rendering steps. Anyway, now you know why the drawings aren't quite as polished as Lauren's, but to actually talk about Shadow's design here, for his armor piece, I decided to go with neck armor and shoulder armor, almost like a cowl, because in his original design, Shadow has a scarf and a mask to cover up his scars on his face. And so I figured that turning both of those into one piece of armor would translate the best and still keep the vibe that he's kind of like hiding within his clothes. And I forgot to mention this in Lauren's design, but like I said earlier, I wanted to have their group's logo tattooed somewhere on their bodies to help represent like the scars or tattoos my characters already have. So on Lauren's design, she has the logo on her side, and for Shadow, I put the logo on his cheeks, which he hides with the armor to represent where Shadow's normal scars are. Out of the three that I'm designing today, Shadow's design changed the most from his normal one. I almost completely redesigned his outfit because, like I said, I'm trying to make these designs look like a mix between medieval fashion or like medieval fantasy and modern clothes, and I couldn't really think of a way to make Shadow's normal outfit look like modern streetwear in any way. So I just tried to make his silhouette similar. The only thing he really carried over was I turned his normal long cloak into just this cropped shirt. And my favorite part of his design is definitely his pants. These don't look anything like his normal pants, but I wanted to give him just really baggy pants to kind of contrast with his sleeves and his tighter top under the armor. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do for the pants. I didn't want them to just be baggy sweatpants because I thought that would be boring. So I was looking on Pinterest for different pants, and I saw this really cool pair of pants that was like baggy underneath, but it also had like a layer of fabric on top, and I just thought that looked really cool. So I gave Shadow those pants, and I think it turned out really good. It's a small detail, but I made the underside of the fabric on top of his pants blue to try and help bring more blue into his design, because I feel like on most of these I didn't use enough of their main color in their outfits, so I was just trying to sneak in that blue wherever I could. The one thing I'm kind of iffy about in this design is the silver trim along his sleeves. I added that there because his original design has it, but I don't know if I actually like it. I think it might look good if the sleeves were just all blue, so let me know which one you think would look better. But with that, here is Shadow's final design. Other than the little sleeve detail, I think his design came out pretty good. At first, I wasn't too happy with how his pose and face turned out, but I think it's starting to grow on me, and I still really like his design. Even though the rendering isn't as detailed as Lauren's, I still like how it came out, and I think Shadow turned out really cute. And our final character in this video will be Ty. And before I get into his design, it is that time in every single video where I hide my little secret message. If you don't know, I hide little messages in all of my videos to see who is paying attention. And the emoji for this video will be the octopus emoji. I think it's rather fitting. So if you're hearing this, please put the octopus emoji in one of your comments so that way I know you're paying attention. And while you're down there, you can always like and subscribe. I'm just joking. Anyway, that's enough of that. Time to talk about Ty's design. While I don't exactly have a final design for Ty, I have a pretty good idea of what I want him to look like in my head, so I didn't find translating his design into Octowing form to be too difficult. Unlike Shadow, Ty is wearing a lot of the same clothes he normally does, which is just like a basic tunic with a chainmail undershirt and a big fat chest plate and scarf. I thought these clothing items already fit pretty well with the design aesthetics I was working for. The main thing that changed with his outfit was instead of having pants and boots, he now has a pair of shorts and sandals, which I think amplifies the surfer aesthetics he was already kind of going for. For Ty's main armor piece, I went with a big fat chest plate along with one shoulder pauldron. He already normally has a chest plate, so this placing made the most sense. I was also debating whether or not to give Lauren a chest plate, but I decided to stick with the one main armor piece per character, so the chest plate went to Ty. Although most of it is covered by his scarf, I was really debating whether or not I even wanted to include his scarf in his Splatoon design, but I just think it's such an iconic part of his normal design. The scarf is a very important part of his story, and him having the scarf gave him a much more unique silhouette compared to my other characters, and the scarf was the only place I could reasonably make this bright teal color. I didn't want to make his tunic all teal because I thought that would be way too much, so having the scarf let me have more of that color. The only trade-off is that his armor is kind of covered, but I wanted the pauldron to be more of the main piece anyway, so I think it was a good deal. Ty is actually the only design here who has a main color that is completely not present in their main design. And the reason that is because if I had to choose a main color for Ty that was already present, I would probably choose yellow because he's originally blonde, or blue. But I couldn't choose either one of those colors because Shadow is blue, and that is way more of an essential color to his character. And Aurora is already yellow, and just like Shadow, yellow is way more crucial to her character than it is to Ty. And so I was in a weird position where like all the primary colors of the rainbow were already chosen, and so I had to pick a color for him that was different than everyone else's, and I went with this teal because a long time ago Ty had a teal ombre in his hair, and in the past little bit I decided to get rid of that, so he no longer has teal in his design, but still in my head that is still a color that I think represents Ty. So I decided to bring the teal back in this design and give him his little teal ombre in his hair. And for Ty, I put his little group logo on his calf because unlike a lot of my other characters, Ty doesn't have any tattoos or scars. So I decided to put it where his normal stone would be. I haven't fully decided where his is going to be, but I think it's going to be on his leg. So I put the little group logo there. But with that, here is Ty's final design. I think it turned out so cute, and out of all of them, I like his face the best. I think he looks so happy and so cute. I really love Ty, and I need to draw him more often, and I think this was a pretty good representative for him. And with that, everyone, I also want to say thank you so much for watching. I still have 4 more of these guys to design, so if you're enjoying this video, please let me know if you would like to see me draw the rest of them. I would be happy to. I love drawing these little Splatoon characters. And also let me know if you've played Splatoon Raiders and if you're enjoying it. I have been having so much fun playing it. I'm kind of scared because I think I'm almost at the end of the story. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm really hoping that it's like a false ending and that it's not, because I never want this game to end. But I'm having a lot of fun. I really like the feature where you can like go online and help people. I just think that is so funny that there's like a call for help option. I'm desperately trying to get my friends to buy it so we can play together, but so far that mission has not been successful. but I've been enjoying it by myself. But anyway, my upload schedule has been absolutely fried the past couple months, and I'm really sorry, but I have to bring some bad news. I will not be able to upload next week, unfortunately. I'm doing a kind of job shadowing thing for a week, so I won't be able to make any content. But I might be drawing, so you can always check out my Instagram if you want to see if I do any drawing in the meantime. But with that, I will see you guys whenever I get to upload next. Bye bye!